Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear learners. Welcome to English Grade 8 video lessons. It's me, your instructor Zia Hamid. I hope that you're doing well. Students, as you know, we are on unit number 6 and let's cover yet another SLO from our reading and critical thinking. So for lecture 4A, we have this learning outcome. Let's read it. It says, determine the meaning of words and phrases as they are used in a text, including the figurative and connotative meanings. And we also have to analyze the impact of rhymes and other repetitions of sounds, and they are called alliteration, on a specific verse or stanza of a poem or section of a story or drama. But here, students, as you know, the main lesson is a poem, The Most Beautiful Flower. So we will apply this learning outcome and the keywords, an important topic in the poem. Now, we will leave story or drama for any other unit. So we are focusing on our poem. We are going to see that how the words and phrases they are used in the poem, how they are very impactful, and also we know that poems have figurative language, including the figures of speech. It also has a rhythm, a rhyme scheme, which we need to find, and we know that there are some words, there are some sounds that are in the repetition. They are called alliteration, and it consists of assonance and consonants. We are well aware of these classification of different repeating sounds. So let's dive into the lecture and see what we are supposed to do. Here you can see this vertical linkage of the SLO with the previous grade, and let's begin the lesson with a very interesting and a very good brainstorming session in where you have to think that how the words and phrases that are used in the poem leaves impact or effect on the reader. So we know that poems are different than prose. They are very powerful. They evoke emotions. And how do we evoke emotions? As a reader, how do we feel about the words and the phrases used in a poem? Recall your knowledge and your time of reading different poems and think about it. Do the words and phrases leave impact on you, the reader? Good. I hope that you have given your answers to the instructor. So that's a very good thing. Now, let's move on to the main lesson. You can open your books. Here it's a poem, The Most Beautiful Flower. It is on sympathy and having empathy for others and having a very positive worldview. Now, let's read it and see that how these different things are working in the poem. Let's start it. The park bench was deserted as I sat down to read. Beneath the long, straggly branches of an old widow tree. Delusioned by life with good reason to frown, for the world was intent on dragging me down. And if that were not enough to ruin my day, a young boy, out of breath, approached me all tired from play. He stood right before me with his head tilted down. Now, notice, students, that these specific words like deserted or straggly branches, delusioned, and also words like ruining day, or so all these words, and including an old widow tree, these words and phrases are very important to the poem because they leave a very good impact on the reader, and you can have pictures in your mind when you hear the word deserted, which means that there was nobody around the poetess. Yes, the poem is written by a female poet and she's saying that the park bench was deserted. Now, if you hear the word or read the word deserted, what comes in your mind? Like there was nobody. It was all in a very solitude. Now, old willow tree tells you the description of the tree. It is old and straggly branches. Good. Delusioned. What kind of word is it? Is it having a positive feeling or a negative feeling? And the world was intent on dragging me down. A young boy out of breath. Now, how do you picture it? I hope that you have read the poem. This is about a young woman who is very depressed and she's lonely, but there's a boy who gave her a flower, but that boy was blind. So this poem is full of meaningful messages and morals, and to have a fresh look at life. Yes. Now, we have pointed out our most important words in this stanza. So in the next one, this is the second stanza of the poem, and said with great excitement, "Look what I found. In his hand was a flower, and what a pitiful sight, with its petals all worn, not enough rain or too little light." Wanting him to take his dead flower and go off to play, I faked a small smile and then shifted away. But instead of retreating, he sat next to my side and placed the flower to his nose and declared with overacted surprise, "It sure smells pretty and it's beautiful too. That's why I picked it. Here, it's for you." Now, can we see some repetition of sounds in this second stanza? Yes, we do. Small smile. This is consonants because the consonant S is being repeated. And what else? Pitiful sight. This is having assonance with vowels. I. Now, so you can find so many different repetition of sounds which we call alliteration. Either it is repetition of vowel sounds or the consonant sounds. Yes, when we are having repetition of vowel sounds, we call them assonance. And when we have repetition of the consonants in our verses, we call it consonants, right? Because the consonants are being repeated over and again. And you can see that excitement, petals. How was the petal? It was all worn because there was not enough rain and there was not enough light given to the flower. Now this tells us about the condition of the flower and also how the boy came with excitement with a flower in the hand and he was acting in a way. Now, you can see that in the next stanza, also in the previous one, you can find different repetition of sounds and meanings. Either they are connotative or actually figurative meaning, which is not meant to be taken literally. Now, let's read our third stanza. The weed before me was dying or dead, not vibrant of colors, orange, yellow, or red. But I knew I must take it, or he might never leave. So I reached for the flower and replied, "Just what I need." But instead of him placing the flower in my hand, he held it midair without reason or plan. It was then that I noticed for the very first time that weed-toting boy could not see. He was blind. Now, when she noticed, the poetess, that the boy is just putting the flower in the mid-air and not directly handing it to her because the boy could not see. And when the poetess see this, she actually is she starts thanking to God. She starts having gratitude. Why? Because she was very lonely and depressed due to the life problems. But when she saw that the boy, though he was blind, but he made an extra effort to make her smile, and he picked a flower, not plucked it. He said, I picked it for you. Now, this tells us the positivity, and these words and phrases, they are giving us the positivity of the boy, and the poetess words like disillusioned or all these words of negative connotation, they are telling us that how the poetess was feeling before the boy came in. Now, this poem is by Sharadel Costello Forche, and though it is not a complete poem that we have added in the book, however, you can read it on the internet or ask your teacher to provide you with all the leftover stanzas. Now, let's talk about the figurative language used in the poem. I hope that when we were reading it, you could easily point out your previous knowledge or prior knowledge of figurative language. So, the verse, for the world was intent on dragging me down. It means that the poetess felt that the whole world was somehow conspiring against the poetess, and the world was intended on dragging me down, to pull me down and to make me feel this way. Now, the personification of the world as a force dragging the speaker down conveys a sense of overwhelming negativity and hopelessness. So, the whole meaning of this phrase has a negative connotation, and the personification is that the whole world is doing something. What? Dragging the poetess down. So, this is an example of personification. The world is being personified over here. Now, we know that figures of speech also include hyperbole, and hyperbole is exaggeration. More than it is, we exaggerate it and we extend or lengthen it. For example, I heard my voice quiver, tears shone in the sun. Yes, this means that here, this part, tears shone in the sun. The tears were so many that when the sunlight was reaching it, it shone in the sun. It started shining. So, this is also a hyperbole because we know that it does not shine that way, but it is expressed in that way. So, this verse is containing a figurative meaning. And next one, let's talk about the connotative meaning. We know that meaning are of two types, denotative and connotative. That's good. Connotative means that the meaning is associated with emotions and society, and it has some associations. Now, this verse, delusioned by life with good reason to frown. So, delusioned is having a connotative meaning, but it is a negative connotation, not a positive one. This phrase or this word delusioned suggests a loss of faith or hope in life. We know that the poetess was very hopeless before the boy came in, while the good reason to frown implies a sense of justified unhappiness. So, here we can see when we are reading something, we can associate with ourselves and find if the word has negative or connotative meaning. Next, let's talk about the sounds in a poem. Yes, there are rhythms, rhyming scheme, different patterns, different stanzas in a poem, and also alliteration. Now let's find it out. So in line number 12, if you see, I faked a small smile and then shifted away. Small smile is repeating the sound SM or S. So it means that consonance is there in this verse. In 9 or verse 21, the weed before me was dying or dead. Now, can you point out the repetition of sounds? If you read it loud, the weed before me was dying or dead. Yes, dying or dead. We have consonants and we also have assonants. Weed, before, me. Now, you can find both these examples of consonants and assonants in this verse, and after reading the poem by yourself, you can point out more examples of these alliteration. Now, here is a simulation link that you can watch to learn more about all these things that you can find in a poem. You need to learn them and then apply it on different poems, which is your homework. Here you can see a poem by the title of Sympathy by Paul Laurence Dunbar. Now, this is the first stanza. All you have to do is identify the figurative and connotative meaning of words. You can check out the dictionary and also the phrases. Not only this, but you have to identify rhyme scheme. Yes, we know what is a rhyme scheme and how we can write it at the end of each of the poem, and alliteration. Yes, you can find assonance and also consonants in this stanza. So you need to figure out figures of speech if they are included, rhyme scheme, and different kinds of figurative meanings. Here is your worksheet. This is the whole poem, Sympathy, and now you're going to apply the learning outcome on this poem by actually finding the rhyme scheme, find if there is figures of speech, there are repetition of sounds. Now this fulfills our today's purpose of learning this learning outcome, and you can see the resources over here. These are available to put your knowledge into practice. You should solve the worksheet and the skill sheet in order to justify your learning of the learning outcome. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you in the next video lesson with lecture 4B. This is somehow related to it. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.